The story of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Jaya and Vijaya are the outer aspects of Vishnu. Vishnu preserves the universe and he preserves all beings. Existence, consciousness, and bliss all proceed from Vishnu. And it is these essential attributes that bring about the involution and evolution of all beings. In minerals, there is existence, but it is tamasic. Consciousness and bliss are completely eclipsed by the tamasic opacity of gross matter. In the vegetables, there is existence and something more, the bare dawning of perceptive consciousness. There is predominating tamas in the vegetables also. But Rajas also tries to manifest itself. In the animals, Rajas asserts itself by increasing activity and by the action of the senses. The animals exist, they are conscious, and they have blissful experiences. In men, Rajas plays the most important part. Through the ever increasing activities of mind and the development of consciousness, man runs after all sorts of experience, pleasurable and painful, till at last the idea of lasting the real bliss settles down in him, and he knows more of bliss than any other being in the universe. The future evolution of man lies in the permanence of spiritual bliss, which is purely sattvic in its character. Vishnu preserves all beings in their tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic stages. For preservation means the maintenance as well as the improvement of beings. Therefore, preservation is sattvic and Vishnu is the preserver. We live and move onwards in all stages of our being. But in Rajasic and Tamasic stages, it is the attendants of Vishnu, the doorkeepers that preserve us, and the Daityas are the lower manifestations of Jaya and Vijaya. One is Tamasic and the other Rajasic. Hiranyaksha is tamasic. He represents the original inertia of matter, its primary resistance to the onward process of evolution. There was existence after pralayak sleep, but it was homogeneous existence with little or no phenomenal change. Varaha got over this homogeneal tenacity by the killing of Hiranyaksha, and he set going the process of planetary and individual life. Hiranyakashipu came next. He was the favored son of Brahma. He helped the evolution of individual life. Minerals became vegetables, vegetables became animals, and animals became men. The intellectual power of men rapidly increased, and there was material and moral progress. The limit of moral progress was reached by Prahlada, but the ideal of Prahlada was based upon the conception of differences and of individualities. It is for this reason that Varna and Ashrama Dharma, or the separate duties of life for separate classes of men, is dealt with in the discourses with Prahlada. But though Prahalada was a son of Hiranyakashipu, he was an exception to the general run of material evolution, which was fostered by Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu hated the development of sattvic virtues. He hated Hari, the embodiment of sattva. Risinha killed the great Daitya, and sattva made its appearance in men. Hiranya means gold. Hiranyaksha is gold eyed. Hiranyakashipu is gold bedded. Ravana and Kumbhakarna. The story of Ravana Kumbhakarna. Hiranyakashipu represented the gradual development of material and intellectual evolution till the highest point was reached. Then there was a period of intellectual abuse. The intellect of man tried to get a supremacy over the established orders of things. Ravana sought to make nature subservient to his own purposes. The universe existed for man and not man for nature. This was a perverse idea that guided the people of the Atlantean continent. The intellectual giants, maddened by this material grandeur, did not look for any world beyond the one they lived in. They cared not for Swarga nor for the sacrifices that led to Swarga. The flow of evolution, the breath of Ishvara, seemed to stand still for a time, as it were. The human will tried to override the divine will. The human will tried to override the divine will. There was chaos and disorder, which tended to cause dissolution in the universe. Hence, Ravana was a Rakshasa. The Tamasic Kumbhakarna, with his 6 monthly sleep, was the background of Ravana. The spiritual forces that were called forth to put an end to this state of things were equal to the occasion. The great Atlantean continent was washed away by the sea. The sacred Ganga came rushing forward from the heights of the Himalayas, and eventually Rama appeared to give a finishing stroke to the evolutionary work of the time. Vishwamitra and others had paved the way for the great work undertaken by Rama. They propounded the Karmakanda of the Vedas. Men who knew nothing but the joys and sorrows of this short span of earthly life, and whose ideas and aspirations were all confined to that life, made a great advance when they were taught of an existence after death. When they further knew that life in Swarga was infinitely happier and far more lasting than what they called life on this earth, they made the beginning of a really spiritual life. The Vedic Devas are permanent dwellers in Swarga, and the Vedic sacrifices establish communion with them by means of Apurva, a spiritual force generated by the performance of sacrifices, and life in Swarga becomes prolonged for a very, very long period. People took time to understand this truth, but in time they accepted the performance of Vedic sacrifices as the only religion for man. There was, however, a reaction. The intellectual giants called Rakshasas looked down upon Vedic sacrifices, and they did not care for any life after death. They were the worst enemies of the Vedic rishis. Vishwamitra took the help of Rama in protecting the rishis in the peaceful performance of yagnas. But people had grown old in their ideas about Vedic sacrifices. The first seceders were some Kshatriyas. They did not understand why Vedic sacrifices should be the monopoly of Brahmanas, and they aspired to the position acquired by them. The foremost of these Kshatriyas were the Haihayas and Talajanghas, but they were defeated by Parashurama, who re established the supremacy of the Brahmanas. But a silent revolution was going on in which the Kshatriyas and Brahmanas equally took part. King Janaka and Rishi Yagnavalkya gave the finishing stroke to the Upanishad movement, and side by side with Karmakanda grew up the Jnanakanda of Vedas. Rama brought the two divisions of the Vedas into closer union as he was himself the resting place of both. And as Vishnu himself, he became the object of upasana. The three paths appeared, that of karma, bhakti, and jnana. Vedic sacrifices held their own, and a school grew up which accepted these as the highest karma which man could perform. Another school, following the very old teachings of Kapila, dissected the transformable parts in man and discriminated the same from the non transformable. A sister school followed up the teaching with practices in conformity to these and taught how to concentrate the mind on the discriminated Atma. Another school confined itself to the properties of matter and mind, soul and oversoul, and remained wonderstruck at the superior properties that divided Jiva from Ishvara. Schools of independent thought grew up. Each school had its followers. There were differences and dissensions. There was disunion, self sufficiency, pride, envy, jealousy, and other evil traits of human character that thinks too much of itself. Everyone followed his own faith and hated the follower of other faiths. This was a cycle of Shishupala and Dantavaktra. Jarasandha performed Vedic sacrifices and he put in chains the Vaishnava kings. There were those who believed in the existence of two primary causes, Vivid. Men like the king of Kashi prided themselves on mock wisdom. Religious faiths existed in all possible shades, and their difference was accentuated by dogmatism and mutual jealousy. The Vedas are different, the Smritis are different. He is not a Muni who has not some distinctive opinion of his own. This well known verse related strictly to the period of which we are now speaking. Shishupala had respect for the Munis. He was essentially a man of the period. Sri Krishna taught harmony. He gave the essence of all religions, the eternal truths that formed the groundwork of all faiths. He proclaimed in the clearest language possible the one underlying the many, the eternal Brahman, as forming the essence of Jiva and Ishvara. He particularly emphasized the relations of man, Ishvara, and the universe, and the duties that followed from these relations. Religion became a science, the law universal, and all teachings found their respective places in the universal religion which he proclaimed. The rishis bowed down their heads before him. The Upanishads were never explained so lucidly before. The keynote of all truths and all religions was unraveled beyond all doubt. Such knowledge could proceed only from Ishvara himself. The rishis recognized Sri Krishna as the Lord, but Shishupala was slow to believe in this novel revolution. He did not understand why the rishis gave the first place to Sri Krishna at the Rajasuya sacrifice performed by Raja Yudhishthira. The difference formed a religion with Shishupala, but the age of differences was doomed. The age of unity, of harmony, of spiritual glory was now to reign in the universe. Hundreds and hundreds of years have passed away, but the scriptures one and all proclaim the glory of Lord Sri Krishna. What he has done for our universe, we shall see later on. Dantavaktra was the tamasic counterpart of Shishupala. The Asuras advanced as Kalpik age advanced. There was no end of advancement from the standpoint of self. There is no big jump from individual self to universal self. Though the essential idea of spirituality is unity and the essential idea of materiality is diversity, the one idea develops into the other idea by an ever widening view of things. Our duties enlarge, our relations increase, the range of life widens till it includes the life in Swarga. Vedic yagna is then performed, though from a pure motive of self advancement, the advanced self comes very near to the universal self. The performance of Vedic sacrifices is asuric insofar as it is selfish, but it minimizes the self of earthly existence and gives a transitory character to our worldly joys and sufferings, and it gives the idea of an enlarged self, of widened existence, and of higher duties. The Karma Kanda of the Vedas, therefore, opens the door widely to real spiritual life. This explains why Vishwarupa and Asura guided the Devas for some time. The three heads of Vishwarupa represents the three Vedas. The swallow head is the Rik, the sparrow head is the Saman, and the Taitri head is probably the Yajur. This refers to the prevalence of Karmakanda, but when better times came, Indra killed Vishwarupa. The place of Vishwarupa was, however, speedily taken up by Vritra, and Indra had recourse to Adharva, the fourth Veda, and to the Dichi, a votary of Adharva Veda, the very ideal of self sacrifice. And who is this Vritra? The Vedas say Sa iman lokan abrinod edat vritrasya vritratvam. He's spread over all these lokas. This is the vritraship of Vritra. The Bhagavata says these lokas are spread over him in the form of Tvashtri's tapas. Hence, he is called Vritra. The invocation of Twashtri is thus described in Bhagavata: Rise up, O Indra, Shatru, never give up enmity. The word Shatru means enemy. Twastri meant to say he who is to become the enemy of Indra. But by proper grammatical construction, the expression means he of whom Indra is to become the enemy. The invocation was therefore defective and it produced a contrary result. Panini points this out as an apt illustration of what bad grammar leads to. The Vedas thus speak of the invocation as he said Swaha. O Indra Shatru, rise up. So Indra became the enemy of Vritra. Notwithstanding his wisdom, Chitraketu was anxious to have a son. He wept bitterly when the son was lost. He was a votary of Sankarshana who presides over Ahankara or egoism. So, by devotion, he became the king of Vidyadharas. This selfish devotion, the worship of gods for the gratification of selfish aspiration, which is so universal, is Vritra. Vritra was killed by a weapon made of the bones of Dadichi, the rishi of self sacrifice. We want to kill thee for thy bones, for they will be of service to the universe. So said the Devas. And Dadichi felt the height of pleasure in giving himself completely up that the universe might prosper. We are told that the fight with Vritra took place in the Vaivasvata Manvantara. The readers will easily understand why this is so. The fight between the Devas and the Asuras is only a counterpart of struggles on our earth between the forces of materiality and spirituality. With the appearance of Lord Krishna, the ascendancy of Asuras is virtually over, and however self seeking we may be by our nature, we bow down before the ideal of unselfishness of one life pervading all beings, so prominently held before us by that greatest of all avatars, and the circle of those that follow this ideal is daily increasing. But why is Atharva Veda spoken of as the Veda of unselfishness? The popular idea about that Veda is quite the contrary. People resort to it for tantric malpractices. The Vajra or thunderbolt is an electric current which, in the hands of Indra, has the power of spiritualization. The Asuras dread the subtle forces of nature which reach them even in the regions of Patala. Who knows what purpose the electric discharges serve in the economy of nature? Who knows of the subtler currents of spiritual forces that silently bring about the grandest revolutions in nature? Atharva Veda inculcates an intimate acquaintance with the subtle forces of nature. It opens the door alike to white as well as a black magic. But at the present day, the black magic only survives, making the Atharva a name of opprobrium and reproach. Marut is Vayu. The Maruts are forms of pranic energy. They are 49 in number, corresponding to the 49 forms of Agni. These 49 forms include all sorts of pranic energy in the spiritual, intellectual, and material planes. As the whole process of evolution is dependent on life activities, and as life itself is essentially divine, the Maruts are the companions of Indra. As by life, we understand individual life as imprisoned in Jivik centers. The Maruts are by birth Daityas. We have lingered so long over the Daityas. The Danavas are also called Asuras, but they are essentially different from the Daityas. Every individual has got two aspects, Prakritik and Purushik. The Purusha aspect in him is limited by the individual Prakriti. The individual limitation appertains to the Daityas. The Prakritic element in man is Danavik. The chief Danava, Maya, is an aspect of Maya. Maya is a great magician, as the essence of Prakriti is illusion. Duryodhana and his brothers could not discriminate between the illusory aspect of the assembly ground prepared by Maya. To the Pandavas, the followers of Sri Krishna, there was no illusion. The Danavas led men away from spirituality, so much so that they may be estranged completely from their spiritual nature. These dark forces in nature have no redeeming feature in them. Fortunately for the history of the universe, we do not hear much of them.